Well, we enter the final week of 2020. Or is it the final week? Is it going to turn into the 13th month of 2020? I'm Dustin Bass.
And I am Alan Wakim.
And he is absolutely hysterical right now. Look at him.
Here we are again.
Unbelievable. Why don't you calm down? Relax.
I'm sorry that all of you folks have to see this. I know it's
he's a shell of who he used to be.
Yeah.
Look at him. Practically in tears. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the final week of 2020. Alan, here's what I anticipate. I anticipate hearing a lot of people saying, oh, thank God 2020 is over. To which my response will be, what do you think is going to magically transpire that's going to make 2021 any better?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like you just scrub everything and reboot your computer. It doesn't work that way. You know, you have to kind of liken it to Jurassic Park. What happened when they rebooted the system?
What, they had to wait a little while for things to pick up, right? Like the electricity stuff. All the dinosaurs had already gotten through.
Well, the velociraptors got out.
Yeah. Which made the whole situation even worse.
Yeah, I can only imagine what 2021 is going to bring.
So when we say that 2021 is we're just going to reboot and we're going to get back to going, get our lives back, we will unwittingly have released the velociraptors along with T-Rex.
And what does velociraptor begin with? A V. What else begins with a V? Virus.
That's stupid.
And we still have the China virus running rampant.
It also victory starts with a V.
So does vanquished. I think with the virus, the velociraptors, that's still going to be hanging over us like albatross, and
isn't like a velociraptor? Isn't that part of the bird family?
Well, I mean, supposedly they say that
you said albatross. So
dinosaurs evolved into birds. So they say although I don't see how a brontosaurus can evolve into a bird. That doesn't.
I think that it's all BS. I don't even believe in dinosaurs.
What do you mean you don't believe in dinosaurs? What do you think? God just put them there to test our faith?
He put those bones in there. It's a trick.
That's what my mom told me. I said, when she was saying that, because I mean, my mom believes that the Earth was created in 6 24-hour days. Now, not to knock people who believe in that, I don't.
Like your mother.
Like my mother.
You're throwing your mother right under the bus.
Well, I asked her, okay, then what about the dinosaurs? And, I said, supposedly they were around 66 million years ago. And she actually told me, well, God put the bones in there to test our faith. And I'm like, why?
Why? To test our faith. What are you, deaf? That's yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to overcome.
Yeah.
I don't think I can go with God put the bones there to test our faith theory.
Nah.
I don't think I can go with that one. I also don't think I can go with the Tim Hardaway theory of someone put those there to trick us. So it's
Tim
all
Hardaway,
up in the air.
The basketball player?
Yeah.
He's
on board with a number of people who think that the bones, the dinosaur bones it's just a big conspiracy. So Isn't this funny that we got on this conversation all of a sudden? All right, what are we going to be talking about this week? We're going to be talking about, will the Republic last? Is the Republic going to last after 2020? And regardless, we're going to tackle both of the situations of if Trump wins or if Biden wins. Will the Republic remain intact after either of those scenarios take place? But before we do, I want to ask you, how was your Christmas?
Oh, it was all right. I spent Christmas Eve with my mother, and then I spent
talking about dinosaurs.
Well, no, we talked about, do I want to eat anything? No. Do you know I met the Virgin Mary? Yes, you told me, Mom. Okay. Do you want to eat anything? No, Mom, I'm good. Okay. Did I ever tell about the time I met the Virgin Mary? Yes, you told me several times. Okay. Are you hungry? No, Mom, I'm good. I swear. All right. You know, the Virgin Mary was in this tunnel one time. Mom, yeah, I know you told me the story. Okay. You sure you don't want to nibble on it? I mean, that was Christmas Eve. So I went to bed early. I went to bed early. I took this 2 sleeping pills so that I'll be knocked out. It was around 8:30. Woke up. I think I woke up around 10, and I was like, "Okay, Mom, we got to go." So we met up with Jennifer and her mom, and with her friend Brenda, and several people. It was Christmas Day was a lot of fun. I was able to get Mom out of the house and, you know, get her around people. No, we were not wearing masks.
What?
We were not wearing masks.
Oh, so in other words, it was a super spreader event. That's what you're telling me?
Yeah.
You sicken me. Sicken me. In fact, you do quite possibly do sicken me with the COVID because you're not wearing a mask. In fact, I think we should start wearing a mask during this show, even though we're in 2 separate places.
Even though we're by ourselves?
It doesn't matter. Haven't you seen people driving around in cars by themselves wearing a mask, windows up?
I see people.
It's called precaution, jogging. You fool.
I see people jogging out in the open with no one around them, and they're wearing masks.
Oh, open fields.
I don't know.
All right, let's move on. My Christmas was pretty good.
I didn't ask for you. How was your?
I'm asking myself because you don't give me the common courtesy to ask me questions that I would like to have asked. You just sit there with this pompous attitude. Pompous. My mother liked to use that word a lot. Pompous.
Did she?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pompous. I liked that word though. Pomp and circumstance. But no, thanks for not asking. Yeah, my Christmas was pretty good. Got to hang out with the family. Let's see. Yeah, Christmas Eve, hung out over at my aunt and uncle's house. And then the next day I was at my brother's house with the kids and my parents. We had a good time. Stayed over there till nighttime. Yeah, so it was a good, long, thorough Christmas celebration. So, yeah, thanks for asking, jerk face. All right, so let's start again, shall we? Let's start over. Let's just, let's reboot.
Let's reboot.
Let's reboot. The dinosaurs are out. Yeah, start it all over. I love you. You're my friend. And what is your book and movie recommendation?
Okay, book recommendation. If you can see it.
1620, A Critical Response to the 1619 Project by Peter W. Wood.
Correct. That is my book recommendation. And this has even been endorsed by Dr. Mary Graybon.
That's right.
She was
we had her on the show about a month ago.
Yeah. So she recommended this book, and she's going to have her own version of her own response to the 1619 Project. But this is available right now.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend people get it because New York Times and the rest of their ilk are pushing the 1619 Project, working with the Zen projects and working with the American Empire, blah, 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 all these other groups to just knock our country down, make our country illegitimate. So I do recommend that book. In terms of a movie or TV recommendation, I was thinking about the reboot for Battlestar Galactica, the one
Oh,
that came the one that came out
gosh.
in the 2000s, not the 1977 version, but the 2000 version. And ironically enough, season 2, episode 20, very close to 2020, they had an election. And in that election, you had, oh God, I forgot what her name was. She was the president at the time. Let's see, I forgot her name. President Laura Roslin, working in conjunction with Admiral Adama, tried to rig the election against Dr. Gaius Baltar. So all these votes just appeared out of nowhere.
From other planets.
Yeah, so there was a guy, and he was like one of Adama's assistants, who later ended up becoming a traitor to him. He was like going, wait a minute, something's not right here. He was like saying the fix is in, and he exposed the whole thing. But, just something to throw out in terms of fixing an election.
He's a modern day, what would you say? Who would you put that on? Rudy Giuliani?
Well, yeah, kind of.
Maybe.
But if Rudy Giuliani turned against Trump, but this one would be more like, maybe Alan Dershowitz. I don't know. I don't even know where Dershowitz stands on this. I know he's defended Trump on numerous occasions. But,
yeah, I think he said that he was done defending him, though he was retiring from it. All right, so my book and movie recommendation. My book recommendation is one of my favorite books that I've ever read, and unfortunately, I don't have a copy of it, and I would actually like to reread it. It's All the King's Men by Robert Penn Warren. Have you ever read that book?
No, is that about the Louisiana guy?
Yeah,
the Louisiana
Stark.
governor, Huey Dewey Louis.
You talked about the movie version?
What is it called?
All the King's Men.
All the King's Men. Isn't that about like the Louisiana guy that ran for president?
Yeah, he runs for office, and then he he makes these promises or whatever.
Yeah, he was one of Donald. He had a name from something similar to Donald Duck's relatives.
Yeah, well, in the book, his name is Willie Stark, and he's got this sidekick reporter, journalist. His name is Jack Burden. And I remember reading this book. If you'd shut your face, I remember reading this book and thinking, man, I'm a lot like Jack Burden at that point in time in my life where I didn't give a crap about anybody.
Okay.
And I was just like, let's just get out there and, do whatever we want to, not be connected to anybody. And that's where Jack was at that point in time. And this woman, loves him, but he doesn't love her really. He doesn't really care about anybody. And then all of a sudden crap really starts to hit the fan. Willie Stark, starts to go down the path of ambition. He starts off on the right path, and then he falls off of the path because too much power.
Okay.
It's the whole power corrupts thing. So it's a really, really good book. It won the Pulitzer. I can't remember when it was written, 46 or something like that, but it was a really, really good book. So if you've never read that, ladies and gentlemen, of all the books that I've ever recommended, that may be the top one when it comes to fiction.
Okay.
So
apparently it was inspired by the life of Huey Long from Louisiana. Okay. He was a former governor of Louisiana. That's what I was like going. I was like Huey, Dewey, Louis, something. But yeah, Huey Long. He was assassinated apparently. So, but I'd heard that book was about him.
Wow. Okay.
So I guess it was a fictionalized version.
It's definitely it's so good. Anyways, all right, my movie recommendation. I had one in mind, but then I thought about it. I was like, because I tweeted about it earlier today. Arlington Road. Did you ever see that movie with Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins?
No.
And it's about like terrorism, like domestic terrorism.
Nope.
Well,
Nope.
dude,
Missed it.
so this whole Nashville bombing thing, that was the first thing I really thought about was Arlington Road. So
Okay.
I won't go into detail because we've taken long enough on the book and movie recommendation. But if you can find it, check it out. You will definitely look at individual acts of terrorism in a different light. Definitely, maybe not completely. I'm not saying you'll look at them completely, but there'll be a thought in your head. I'm like, Arlington Road. So yeah, check that out. All right, so that's the end of our book and movie recommendation section. So let's get down to brass tacks. If Biden wins or if Trump wins, is our Republican form of government over or will it endure? What do you think?
I can't answer that. I cannot answer that. And here's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what's going to happen. I believe
What,
that
what, do you, what do you mean? What do you mean you don't know what's going to happen?
well, President Trump stated that when this is over, we are going to be victorious. I anticipate that if for some reason he gets if he wins the presidency in terms of the Congress voting him in, I see riots. I see demonstrations turning deadly. I see people fighting back. I see people getting hurt. I see revolution. I see the threat of secession from California, many of Vermont for sure. I can see that. I think that if Trump prevails, we're going to see some deadly consequences.
Correct.
Now, if Biden prevails, it's going to be a longer simmering moment that the Trump people are not going to forget. I don't see them tearing cities apart. I think if they did, that would have already happened. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be resentment, and it's going to simmer, and it's going to be like a boiling water, and eventually something will happen. I don't know when. I think if there's going to be an event where the left does something, the right will just say, "The hell with this, we're done." I'm gonna give you an example. Is just like I lost a friend recently. I got sick and tired of this.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Not died. He didn't die. We had this conversation before. He didn't die, but he decides to lecture me on Facebook. I've been friends with this guy for 40 years, and we've had our issues before. But this time, I'm like, the hell with you. Go. I'm done with you. I mean, that's kind of how I was. I wasn't going to unfriend and block him, because I don't unfriend or block people. I unfollow people, but I don't unfriend and block people because of politics. But I do get sick and tired of people's attitudes, and I mean, I got to that point where I'm sick of your go ahead, leave. And I think that that's kind of the attitude that many of the Trump people are going to have if Biden prevails. And there's now if you take a look at what's going on, let's say in restaurants, I have seen numerous videos in New York City and in Los Angeles where people are getting fed up, but they have not burned or torched anything. But if you look at, let's say, Portland or Seattle, the people on the left, they do torch, they do burn things down immediately when things don't go their way. Do you see what I'm saying in terms of the difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, I see the difference. I just
Right.
want to know exactly the correlation that you're making with your Facebook interaction and this actually taking place as far as Republicans saying, go on, like where would they go? Like what would they do?
Well, I mean, I don't think that. I think the Republic will survive for now if Biden prevails. But something is going to end up happening later on. I truly believe something will happen later on, unless we get such mass migration and the states are just overwhelmed with people who are going to vote Democrat. and if the election laws get looser and looser, where anyone can vote, and I've seen where some people are saying, well, even if you're here illegally, you should have a say in the way uh, government is run, whether it's in the state or local elections.
Right.
I mean, I've actually seen that. I've seen them state that 16-year-olds should have a vote.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's going to happen, then what I anticipate is that eventually I think there will be some kind of secessionist movement, because people don't want to live in a progressive socialist society. I don't want to live in a progressive socialist society. We have nowhere to go, but I don't want to sit and just see everything dominated from Washington, D.C. if the
Mm-hmm.
socialists, the progressives, not only take over but maintain. So that's why I'm saying that if Biden prevails, I think eventually something will happen. Now, if Trump prevails, I anticipate an immediate reaction. Now, what that immediate reaction is going to be, I can't tell you. It could be violence. I do anticipate violence. I'll tell you that right now. We've already seen it. Will California, will some of the West Coast states immediately secede? That I don't know, but I do anticipate that there will be violence. That is what I'm trying to say.
Well, no, I get what you're trying to say. And
Now, will the Republic,
duly noted.
Yeah, will the Republic survive? It's going to be a resented. People are going to resent each other. It's not going to be a healthy Republic. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I don't know. This is
to an extent. I think it turns into something else.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't
Michael
think it
Flynn,
can be. I don't think it can be a Republican form of government, which I'll give my reasons after you get through with your chatterbox.
Yeah, well, I mean, like General Michael Flynn was interviewed by the Epoch Times. There were two different interviews that I know there was a part two of it where they even asked him, "Will the American Republic survive?" The fact that they are even asking him that question tells us that something is up. That there's a reason why we are having this conversation right now,
Mm-hmm.
because republics don't always survive. We have civil wars. France has had a civil war. Like during the Napoleonic era. England has had its civil war. It's had a couple of civil wars, the War of the Roses, and then it had the English Civil War with Charles I.
Right.
Russia, Spain, Germany had their civil wars when World War I ended.
We had ours.
So yeah, we had a civil war, yes, but what I'm getting at is just because a country exists doesn't mean that it can't tear itself apart. It's not like we're immune to some kind of a civil war or some kind of.
Oh, absolutely. No, we're definitely not immune to civil war. We're not immune to a lot of things that maybe we thought that we were. I think that's probably one of the great. What was that story? Mighty Casey has struck out. When you think that people just think, well, they're just too great to fail. It can't fail, and then Mighty Casey strikes out. That is, I think, to an extent where we are as America, where we have been so great, so powerful, such a wonderful country in many instances. But then there are so many things that corruption has seeped in massively across the board. And I think you can look at the reasons for the corruption, or at least the symptoms, and I think you point to the federal government. Obviously, the states have their own thing, but it's much more manageable if it's just like particular states. But when it's the highest form of the government, which would be the federal government, the most powerful at least, you have all of these agencies that have all this power, unelected, just appointed, created within the federal government, that they have their own rules, their own courts, their own regulations, their own fines, their own punishments, and they are not subject to the people, and therefore not subject to Congress to an extent. So you have all of this going on and they are massively corrupt. And I think that you just look at just the intelligence agencies. Now, they've been corrupt for God knows how long. Freaking FBI started off corrupt, really. So, I think that regardless of who wins, let's say Biden, wins. Let's say that the office of the president-elect, the single most important and powerful office in American history and the world, he turns that into the office of the president. I don't think that the Republic can survive when it comes to, and here's why. If Biden wins, it will be half the country will say, forget it, because the Republicans will believe that there was massive fraud. I posted earlier today, and I tagged Ted Cruz and John Cornyn and Kevin Brady, the rep out here where I am. And I just reminded them, I was like, hey, remember that fraud, you can't just set aside a slate of electors because of fraud. According to Joseph Bradley, who was one of the Supreme Court justices during the 1876 situation, and was part of the commission during the Hayes-Tilden president election, he made it very clear that it needed to be manifest fraud, like fraud that was just so obvious. And I just said, look, if there's not fraud with Georgia and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Arizona, then there's no such thing. I said, because, so you need to think about that. It's not just fraud, because we've always had fraud, minimal fraud, but you can't overturn an election because of fraud, because some dead people voted, or because some people did some screwy things or stole some, we're not talking about that. We're talking about manifest fraud where it's so obvious. And I'll plug this in for our good friend Joshua Phillip over at the Epoch Times. His documentary that he just put out on who is stealing America is a must see. So you got to go watch this after you finish watching our conversation here.
It's interesting that you were saying, okay, is it manifest? If you talk to anyone who supported President Trump, yes, it's obvious. It's obvious. I mean, but I cannot tell you, like, including the person who I stopped talking to, him and several others were like, you don't really believe that there was election fraud, do you? Come on. That's the
yeah, no, I know. It's and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that one side totally either they don't care to see it, or they're just seeing what they're being shown, which is that it's not fraud, that there's no here, right? And I am so totally surprised. No, I'm not. I take that back. I was going to say I'm so totally surprised that the mainstream media is not, covering this, but I'm not surprised, because I've been covering the fall of journalism for the past number of years now, and sort of following exactly how much suck they have put into their game lately. And it's atrocious. Like they're not journalists anymore. Everybody's like a freaking opinion writer. There are very few journalists out there. Now, I will say this. There are still some journalists that work for the New York Times and the Washington Post and people like that, those mainstream pieces. Here is the issue, and this is why my third thing is that there is obviously the deep state. I reference a book by David Wise. I've mentioned that book a number of times, called The Invisible Government, which is more or less about the deep state and primarily the military-industrial complex being sort of running the show. And this is shortly after Kennedy had been assassinated. And he brings all this stuff to light. But the deep state is now entangled, or maybe they always were. That's maybe a conversation for another day. It's probably one we've already had. The deep state is tied in with the media, and now they're tied in with big tech. And you see it. It's overt now. Whether the media is just ignoring stories that are coming out, or they're doing this whole fact check situation. And that's one of the ways that that the media and big tech is tied in with the government or the deep state is because this. Whenever you search for a particular topic on Google, what comes up is not a straight news piece. It's not a piece from, some smaller, maybe, some smaller publication. No, it is the usual suspects. It is the usual suspects that show up. It's the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, you'll get Fox in there. It's the big players that get pushed up, but it's typically opinion pieces. It's not straight news stuff that is like, here's what took place. It is always, here's what I think happened or why I think this took place. It's all opinion piece. Now, that is not to say that the New York Times and Washington Post, which I think they have fallen off completely, that is not to say that they're not putting out good information. What I am saying is that we go through Facebook, we go through Twitter, and we go through Google to get our information. And they are the ones that push that stuff up to the top. So that's the first thing you see. Even if you're not searching, you know how your Google News shows up right when you open up the app? Google News does not care anymore about what your search history is. It is always what we want to show you. And here lately, obviously, it's always anti-Trump. And you look, anti-Trump, pro-Trump, who gives a crap? But it's an easy way to see that, okay, there are major connections within these three. And that is why I think that if Biden were to win, one, I don't think that stuff gets corrected. And two, I think that is another thing that Republicans will look at and say, see, told you, this thing it's all a scam, it's all a scheme, and they're all working together, and now it's pretty much all hope is lost.
Well, Yahoo, Google, Bing, all of them, I'll go to their main pages, and I feel like I'm on an editorial site from a left-wing newspaper. I don't even want to look at them anymore. I know exactly what they're going to say. So I've literally had to change it. If you go to Facebook, like you were saying, people are creating jokes and they're being fact-checked.
Correct.
They're being fact-checked. It astonishes me. I have sat and I've looked at Facebook for years. Imagine if you're watching a late night show, Jimmy Fallon or somebody, and he makes a joke and all of a sudden you get this big, wide thing, a window on your TV stating, this has been checked by independent fact checkers, and we find it to be deceiving. They're not going to do that to him, but it's the same thing. That's exactly what it is. And this is one of the things that so many people are so sick of. This is why, I don't know if you noticed, right after the election, you started seeing people popping up saying, here's my new Parler account. Here's my new Parler account. And people started shipping. Parler boomed because it's not that people want an echo chamber, although maybe some do. I don't want an echo chamber. I will still go to Facebook, but people also want to be able to hear the other side without being interfered, without being censored. And
no, I completely agree. And to the people out there watching, we are now on Parler. Thank you, Dustin, very much. Oh, you're welcome, Alan.
I did.
Anyways, you can find us at the Sons of History on Parler. And speaking of fact check, that is one of the things that I wanted to bring up. So we had Snopes, right, back in the day. Obviously, Snopes is still around. It's a joke now. But I think there was an obvious thing that there was something that took place that media companies took notice of. And they were like, people, if they want to know the truth about a situation, they always go to Snopes. Like, Snopes is the thing. Like, if you really want to know if this is a conspiracy theory or if this is fake or if it's real, go to Snopes.com. So they started doing their own. USA Today, WAPO, New York Times, all these. They're all doing fact check. And so it is driving the narrative because two things. They know that readers or viewers are not lazy, but our attention span is so short. This goes for everybody, me included. Alan's attention span is much better than mine. But they know that fact check is one of the things that people for some reason like. And for me, I hate it because it is somebody trying to tell me how to think about something that you don't need to put two and two together. Let us tell you what it is. And they know that a lot of people will take that from a quasi or a supposed reliable source, like say USA Today, and then they'll look at the bottom of what it shows on Google, and maybe Google will have mostly false or true or pants on fire, one of those stupid things, and so they won't even click on the article, and they definitely won't go to the article itself or to the source of which all of it originated from. And so we have big tech driving the narratives, driving what people should think via taking media outlet information and creating, their own narratives, and people follow that. And that's why you'll post something and somebody will go, well, that's already been fact checked. And I'm always like, you still really reading the fact check stuff? You're still abiding by that? You've totally given up your own ability to think for yourself. That to me is the relinquishment of all ability to think cognitively and critically. Well, it was fact checked.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's happening so much. You can't scroll more than twice without seeing some sort of a fact check.
Mm-hmm.
Biden is the presidential winner. We have the United States has laws to ensure that that there's no fraud in our elections, stuff like that, and it's happening. Jokes, I'm seeing them in jokes. I'm seeing them in any commentaries. If you mention President Trump's name, I'm seeing that little window with the little X, and I'll click the X, and it'll go away, and then I'll scroll down, and there's another one. There's another one. And
there are some names, one of them being at Real Donald Trump, that it's automatically put on whatever tweet he sends out. It's automatically put on there like the election was not a fraud. And they got in trouble, or there was some backlash because President Trump had tweeted out something in honor of the veterans of World War II in regard to Pearl Harbor attack on December 7th. He posted just a picture of him and Melania at the Pearl Harbor Memorial. And it had the election fraud fact check on there. Had nothing to do with the election. So that is the situation we're living in. We say this a lot, but we don't say it jokingly. This is Orwellian. Like, we are living in an Orwellian environment. America has gone, in a lot of ways, 1984. And it's a real scary, it's very scary. Now, I wanted to give my if Trump wins scenario. I agree completely with what you said as far as the riots and the violence. I think that is sort of a given. And I think that there are probably a lot of people who are like, you know what, just I don't want to deal with that. But I think when it comes to the Republicans, I think that there are far more who are like, you know what, let it come. Let that fight come, because I think that there are so many who are so angry about what supposedly has taken place from their perspective that they're like, you know what, you want to try to burn down a city? Let's go. And I think that that's going to happen. I don't think you're just going to have people, roaming through burning cities like what happens in Portland and Seattle, where everybody's like, well, anybody going to call the police, or the police going to actually do anything? And there's nothing that's going to happen. I think that you will have, if you have it in certain areas, the police are definitely going to come out in force. I think if you have it in certain states, I think the governors will definitely bring out National Guard, and even possibly calling in for federal troops from whoever the president may be. Let's say, obviously I'm going off the scenario of Trump wins. So that would happen. And then I also think that you would have people. There are a lot of militias out there. And I think the Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, right? So you got some well-regulated militias out there. Now, they may not be quote-unquote connected to the state or local government, but they're still out there. And I think sometimes people like that have no problem taking the law into their own hands, which is a scary thought. It's a very scary thought. But why I think if Trump were to win, you would have the other half of the population say, forget it. If you are going to let this man take authoritarian action and steal this election by whatever means necessary, he is trying to sue and bring lawsuits to federal courts, to the Supreme Court. He's trying to do everything. Can't you see what's going on? He is trying to steal this election right here in front of you. And Republicans are like, yeah, but he has every right to do this. And Democrats are like, what are you talking about? Every election, except maybe the 1876 election, has pretty much gone relatively smoothly. And now you have this one where we told you before the election was even going to take place, we told you that he was not going to go away. There was not going to be a peaceful transfer of power. We told you this. And if Trump were to win, I think that you would see that there is credence in what they were saying. It's like, well, that's what took place. And it will be, he will overturn, or the states or Congress, as you mentioned, will have overturned the people's choice. And that is going to cause such outright anger. And I will say this, and for good reason, especially if you have not been shown any of the testimonies that have taken place on what happened during the election. If you are just sort of oblivious to all of that, then all you're seeing is President Trump does not like to lose. It's the art of the deal, but it's the art of the steal. And this is what's taking place. And people are going to, if they don't get taken to the streets, they're gonna hate Republicans. They're gonna hate Trump even more. And then you're gonna have just I don't see how Democrats don't say screw it like Republicans would if Biden won.
It's funny that you said that. The media is the kind of the key at this moment, because they have kept a lot of stories hidden. You know, there's that story, there's that saying about the media right now will suffocate a story with a pillow until the story is dead. Okay. The Hunter Biden stories, the stories about all the whistleblowers, they're not airing it. If you watch the Today Show, or if you watch This Week, or if you watch whatever programs that the mainstream media shows, they are not showing the viewers on those TV shows what other viewers, say maybe on Fox News or Newsmax, are seeing. They don't see it. So therefore, if it hits them, they're like, wait a minute, what just happened? Why are you telling us that this election was stolen? It wasn't stolen. We haven't heard anything. They didn't hear about Hunter Biden. They didn't even know about Hunter Biden. Well, the reason why is the story was smothered. If you went to Google, it wasn't trending. If you went to Twitter, it wasn't trending.
I mean, Twitter freaking shut down New York Post, their Twitter account for 2 weeks.
So if you don't show a story about what had happened, then if President Trump takes a certain action, or if Republicans take a certain action, it's like being T-boned. They didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
Now, if they are watching Fox News or watching Newsmax and they're listening to the other side, they will know that there's a fight coming. But right now, a lot of them don't know that there's a fight coming. They just know, Biden won, Kamala Harris, and that's it. What's all this? Where did this come from? That's exactly what's going to happen. The media has smothered the story. They've done a very good job about it. I was reading these articles that stated that had the public heard about certain stories like the Hunter Biden story, and they mentioned several other things like Biden's connections with his brother in China. Had they heard those stories, somewhere between 5 to 10% of the Biden voters would not have voted for him.
Yeah, there was one woman. She's got the blue check mark on her Twitter account, and she said, and this was like right after the election, right after November 3rd, and she tweeted out, "Had I known that Biden wanted to shut down the country for 4 to 6 more weeks, I would never have voted for him."
Yeah.
And so I tweeted her back. I go, "How could you not have known that?" That's what's wild. Is like, how could you not have known that that was the case? It had been talked about, the mandated mask or federal mandate. So it's just like, it makes you wonder where people are. And what's sad is that they are supposedly where they need to be.
Well, you remember how a couple weeks ago we had, I don't know how long ago it was, but I mentioned Obama's communist connections, how he had so many influencers in his life that were communist.
Yeah.
And when I say communist, I don't mean, oh, he was a commie. No, they were communist.
Right.
And the media buried the story. They buried all the stories. They buried all the connections that he had to communism. How his biggest influencer was a communist. His father was a communist. His mom was a socialist. His maternal grandparents were socialist communist. And they didn't talk about it. They smothered the story.
Yeah.
They smothered the story. And many of the people within his own cabinet or staff were communist or had communist backgrounds. They didn't talk about that. The media has been very successful. And this is why the same thing could happen with, if Trump manages to pull it off, they're going to be like, where did this come from?
Yeah. And it's going to be, well, this is the rise of Adolf Hitler Part 2.
Yeah.
Because that's been thrown around so much. It's like the far right radical Nazis, whatever, what have you, right? I mean, we call, the far left commies, the far left or the left calls the far right Nazis. And if you have a president who wants to hold on to power as the Democrat side or the left side, claims, and he does by means that a lot of people don't understand. Even me, man, I've been digging into, how would, if Trump were to somehow pull this off, would it be him pulling it off, or would it be just the Republicans saying, look, we're going to do things this way? Like, my nose itches. I'm going to just let you know. So ladies and gentlemen, if you see me rubbing my nose, this happens quite often. My nose itches, and there's nothing I can do about it during the show. So you're just going to have to deal with the annoyance, okay? This happens way too often. Maybe it's hereditary. Anyways, but that's my worry, because the right is already saying, and has been saying for quite some time, if Biden gets in, we're turning it into a communist country.
Right.
And the left is saying, if Trump wins, we're turning into Nazi Germany Part 2.
Right. Now, this has been compared to the 1960 election between Nixon and Kennedy. But the difference then was that, there was voter fraud coming out of Chicago. But Richard Nixon, he and John Kennedy were friends. And there was a difference between, there really wasn't much of a difference between Kennedy and Nixon. They both had the same ends. It's just that their means were a little bit different, but they weren't really that far apart. So when it became obvious that Kennedy had more votes, even though a lot of them were fraudulent votes, Nixon was like, you know what? I'm not going to tear the country apart. This is more than about me. I'm just going to let Kennedy have the win. And Nixon didn't challenge it. But this is a little bit different. This was such, in my opinion, and again, I'm a biased person, but what I have seen is such blatant fraud. The thing that concerns me is that Biden and Trump are so far apart, not just in the means, but in the ends of which direction that we want to go. That because of the differences in the direction that they want to take this country, I myself, I don't want Trump to quit. I don't. I want him to fight. And if there should be a fight, and if there should be some kind of violence, for me, it's worth it than just giving up like the French did in 1940. You know, even when the French did surrender, Charles de Gaulle was like, nope, we're going to keep fighting. And, you know, and there was a difference between the Vichy French and the Free French. I mean, the thing that upsets me is that Mike Pence, the vice president, he will not have dinner or anything. He will not be seen, I believe, with another woman unless maybe his wife is there, or, you know, he doesn't want to create a scenario where people are like, he's with another woman. You know, for me, you know, like with Jennifer, I had a friend of mine, an attractive female, who I told her, don't hug me or don't come into our home if Jennifer's not there. Now, it's not that something was going to happen. It's that you just don't want to create the possibility, the suspicion that something funky or funny was going on. You don't want to set yourself up for that. It's better to don't pour gasoline around you. Just, you know, even if you're not going to play with matches, just don't pour gas around you. We knew something was going to happen. The media, the Democratic Party created the suspicion by allowing so many mail-in ballots be sent out unsolicited, that we knew that this was going to create suspicion of fraud.
Right.
President Trump had been saying it, that to have these many mail-in ballots being sent out, it's going to open us to fraud. It's going to open us to the point where when the election is over, neither side is going to be confident that the winner won it legitimately. And they allowed it to happen, and they should not have allowed this to happen. Had they just kept it where I mean, look, if we can all go to Walmart or we can all go to all these different places and do our shopping, then we can vote. We can do the social distancing. We should have done that. But they wanted it this way. Part of me feels like they wanted to create this scenario where we doubted who the real winner was.
Yeah, I mean, because we are in the age of cynicism. Unfortunately, we are in the age of cynicism where regardless of what takes place, we are going to really struggle to believe whatever happens. Like, nothing is viewed as straightforward anymore. If A happens, then B must have taken place before A. Yeah. You know? And that's, you know, with the massive mail-in ballots, right? And then the massive absentee ballots that were added on top. You're like, this is real suspicious, right? And then there's not going to be a peaceful transfer of power with Trump. And they were saying that during the debates, during the conversations with him, during interviews, questions during press conferences, will there be a peaceful transfer of power? Because the age of cynicism says, no, there won't. This guy is evil. No, Biden's evil. Trump's evil. Everything is wrong. The media is all lying. Whatever they say, if they're saying it, then it's a lie. And this is the age of cynicism to where nothing is straightforward. And I find myself really battling that because, look, I think it's good to question everything. I think it's good to be a skeptic on most things. And it's always good to sort of have that critical eye, not going to the critical theory, of course, but having that critical eye and being like, is everything as straightforward as it seems, or is there something else on the horizon? And now we've gotten to the place where it's like everyone's a cynic. The vaccine, nobody believes that thing. You know, not nobody, but there's a lot of people, including me. I'm like, I posted the other day, I said, I wonder how many of my friends actually believe that these high profile individuals are getting the vaccine.
Yeah, I've seen some of the videos where that just does not look right.
No.
Something doesn't look right. And
Like the one
I'm
with
not a big
Nancy Pelosi
conspiracy.
it looks like she has the cap on it. Then there was the one where it was the doctors who were getting it, and the syringe had already been pushed down, and he sticks them, and then he's like, oh crap,
Yeah.
and then he sort of like lifts it up, pushes it down, and like it's all. I'm like, this is a scam, and that is, I think, one of the long-term results of all this politicization of everything, and then also not being able to trust, seemingly not being able to trust anybody. So now you don't trust anything you see, even if you see it.
I mean, you have to have trust. You have to have confidence. If we have confidence in the election, then we can sit there and say, okay, we lost. You know what? We'll try again in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when Obama won in 2008, I knew he won. I knew it was a legitimate election. It's like, come on, it's John McCain or McClain, whatever the hell, McCain. I keep thinking of Die Hard. I've been thinking Die Hard.
Hippie-Kaye. Hey, did you watch that this year?
Die Hard?
Yeah. It's supposed to be your favorite Christmas movie, right?
Yeah, I think I see it all the time. It's on TV all the time.
No, I mean, did you set it aside as a Christmas movie this year?
I'll stop what I'm doing to watch Die Hard. If Die Hard comes on, if I'm about to go to the gym, okay, the gym can wait, and I'll sit and I'll watch Die Hard. Even though I have it on Blu-ray, I love Die Hard. It's just the greatest movie. It's one of the best movies ever made, along with anything about Jesus of Nazareth. It's up there with, Die Hard.
Stupid. Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah. So, I lost my train of thought. What was I talking?
That's okay. We need to move on anyways.
Okay. So, all right. 2008. 2008. I was okay. Obama won. I wasn't bitter. I was disappointed. All right. Well, we got a Democrat who's going to be in charge. Okay, but he won fair and square. 4 years later, I was actually in Australia when Romney lost, and I was thinking, how the hell did Romney lose? I mean, I could kind of see, because he was the deer in headlights, and he didn't really inspire me that much. But again, I'm like, okay, well, the Obama's popular among the Democrats, among his base, so I can kind of see. Romney was not, so. But then we had the 2016 election. And what did we keep hearing over and over and over again? Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, who created this? The losers created this to create a sense of illegitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the whole Russia thing came from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. That thing never gets fact-checked. Anyway,
no, it doesn't. And it's, and believe me, if anybody was going to find something, it would have been Bob Mueller. And Bob Mueller did not find any type of collusion between Trump and Russia. But there it was for 4 years, and there were no fact checks. And there's still, you put something about Trump and Russia right now on Facebook, it's not going to be fact checked. It's not going to say, this has been verified not to have happened. But Hillary Clinton was successful in creating a sense of illegitimacy for Trump's election. Now, here we have another one where with the countless mail-in ballots, and then I was suspicious when they stopped counting in some cities and some states. I was like, why did they stop counting? To go home for the night? Why? Didn't they know that they were going to be up all night counting ballots? To me, it didn't make sense. Now, I heard Sidney Powell, I think that's her name, Sidney Powell came up with the reasoning for that is because of some algorithm. I don't know if that's true or not, but then that increases the doubt that I have that Biden legitimately won. If it's true that there were so many votes coming in for Trump, that the algorithms in the Dominion machines couldn't keep up and could not overcome the gap between the number of votes that Biden had versus the number that Trump had. That right there creates that sense of illegitimacy for Biden, and it gives me that resentment and gives me that anger that this is a stolen election.
Yeah.
So
and you're going to have bitter people who are going to rage, and it's going to be that one of the things that in 1876, whenever like Democrat held or Democrat leaning newspapers, whenever they would put Rutherford B. Hayes's photo out, they would put fraud across his forehead. Mm-hmm. And that's just going to be his fraudulency. There were names that they gave him nicknames based on the fraudulence of Hayes winning that election. And to an extent, they were in the right to feel that way, right? And it was not good. And speaking of the cynicism, you have here about 2 days after the inauguration, the Supreme Court of the United States is deciding to hear a Pennsylvania court case or a Pennsylvania case on or a case on Pennsylvania. Yeah. 2 days after the inauguration, automatically making you think that the Supreme Court is in on this, or the Supreme Court doesn't care about any of this. They turned down the Texas lawsuit, right? That was joined by, I think, 19 or 18 other states. Mm. And so you had all these, people saying, they turned that down, like, forget it. The Supreme Court is in on this. And I'm like, well, because I had put together, I did a video on the Texas lawsuit coming up. And I said, I really don't think that the Supreme Court is going to take this case. And they didn't. Like, they needed 5 to take the case or to listen to it.
I heard they needed 4. I heard 4 of them. They needed 4 people.
Well, they need 5 for a stay, and that's what this was. They need 4 for certiorari. So this was a stay, and in order to get a stay, you have to have 5. That I did learn after I actually did the video.
Well, they're trying to move it up to this week, I believe, because isn't it on January the 6th when the electors are counted?
Correct. Okay, so
that they want to move it up to this coming week, which I could kind of understand why. So I don't know what is going to happen.
I don't either. But here's the thing: is we have President Trump, who, from what he says, he wants to bring the country together, right? He thinks that, we've got to fight the fraud, and we've got to, quote unquote, stop the steal, and we've got to stop the socialist, communist, whatever. We've got to stop Chinese Communist Party from, continuing its infiltration. He's saying all of this. And then you also have Biden, who is saying, now that I've won, the presidency, let's heal the nation. Let's all come together. And to an extent, from both of their perspectives, whether they're telling the truth or not, they are verbally saying that they want to unite the country. They want to restore the republic. And to an extent, it reminds me a little bit of Julius Caesar when he's, to an extent, wanting to restore the republic. But it's like, bro, you already crossed the Rubicon. Like we've talked about it, like the tube's already out of the toothpaste already out of the tube. You can't put it back in. You already crossed the Rubicon. There is no walking that back. So much has already been done, and that is I don't want to get into the point that Julius Caesar was assassinated by his friends, but
well, I mean,
I don't know.
I've heard the same thing. Let's unite. But I also see people that go, all right, we're going to give Biden the same level of respect you gave Trump.
Correct. Yeah.
You've been calling us some nasty names, some of the worst names for the past 4 years. Now we want to be friends.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like the cynicism and then the obviousness of it. It's like, you can't call people racist for 4 years and then all of a sudden say, all right, we're good.
Well, unless you're Kamala Harris.
Kamala, you bigot.
Kamala? I thought it was Kamala.
No, Kamala.
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 I thought, there used to be a wrestler,
what
Kamala.
A bigot.
Kamala, the Ugandan warrior, and he'd
No.
Yeah, Kamala the
Wow.
Ugandan
Wow.
warrior.
That
Yeah,
is
that was the
really,
wrestler.
that is
How is that
really,
racist?
you sicken me.
How is that racist? She's not even African.
You are whole white racist.
She's like Jamaican and Indian, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Let's not get into that,
But-
shall we, sir?
No. Okay, now
I mean, we can. We
yeah,
can go down that rabbit trail, but I think we've talked long enough.
I think so.
But-
I did want to mention France, 1958.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, go ahead. I was going to mention Cicero, his hands cut off and his head cut off. And that was a guy who wanted to restore the Republic.
Okay.
Julius Caesar, he chose the wrong guy. He chose Pompey. But Julius Caesar was Pompey. He all right, I freaking heard you.
Pompeii was the city.
Yeah, I know. It was destroyed by a volcano. Thanks.
Pompey.
Man, I really wish that you were right next to me. Freaking punch your face in. But I'm
Do you know who else was in that? You know who else was in that triumvirate? You know who the third guy was? You heard of the triumvirate? You had Caesar, you had Pompey. You know who the third guy was?
Caesar, Pompey, and I want to say it was
people are getting bored by your silence. I'll give you a hint. Did you see the movie? Did you see the movie Spartacus?
Yeah.
Okay, that the guy that defeated
today, Junior.
I think his name was Cassius or something like that.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're a what's his name?
Oh, I was thinking of Mark Antony. Sorry.
Cassius. He was the guy that he defeated Spartacus, and I forgot who played him in that movie. Real famous actor, real good actor.
Not Kirk Douglas. It was the guy who played opposite.
Yeah, the guy who played opposite him.
I don't know.
Well, anyway,
it's been a while since I've seen it.
Yeah, when he was actually captured in battle, and they made him drink molten gold.
Shut up! Really?
Yeah.
Holy crap!
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I just did.
Yeah.
Hence my reaction.
I'm trying to make sure. I'm hoping to God I did not give the wrong answer, but I'm pretty sure that's it's funny because the cultural depictions and all that. I better go to the internet. While you're talking, I'll go to the Internet Movie Database and I'll check Spartacus.
Yeah, go for it. So
I
think away from my Roman Republic analogies, I think we may be at a point of no return. I think you and I sort of agree with that. It's like, regardless of who wins, as far as a Republican form of government, if you cannot trust what has taken place, and if you're really cynical, and then you're like, well, if this one is wrong, then what about 2018, 2016? What about the years prior? How long has this been going on? And now you've totally undermined the entire system, which, we can get to the point where we're like, well, that's sort of the idea behind the communists is to undermine the system. But then you start saying, well, who are the communists? Well, it's the left. Well, who's on the left? And then you start creating enemies. And it's this whole idea of your friends are now your enemies.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate cynicism.
Well,
is
like
the people that
friends.
the people that you trust, the people that you grew up with, the people that you love, even your own family. Now you can't stand, you hate them. And now you abide strictly by party. And that is divide and conquer.
Right.
That's where we are. And you cannot have a Republican form of government like that. Yeah. You can have a party only form of government, which would be sort of like a communist type of rule, a dictatorial rule. You might even be able to do an oligarchy. Maybe even a monarchy, but you can't. I don't think you can do a democracy or a Republican.
Let me make a suggestion. By the way, not Cassius, Crassus.
Okay.
Crassus was his name. That's the one that Laurence Olivier played him in the movie Spartacus, the 1960s.
Okay.
But yeah, Crassus was he was part of the triumvirate with Caesar and Pompey, and yeah, he got captured by the Persians, and supposedly they made him drink molten gold.
Woo!
Because he was the
Dang.
richest man. He was the richest man in the world at the time.
See,
Anyway,
I pictured it again.
yeah, that's gotta hurt. You know, I mean, I can barely drink. I can barely drink hot coffee.
You die a rich man.
That's true. You got the Midas touch, but
you got the Midas touch. You can't take it with you though.
No, you cannot. Okay, now I want to mention France. Now, France right now has what's called the fifth, or is it like the French Fifth Republic or the Fifth French Republic? I don't remember. It's one of those two. They had what was called the Fourth French Republic, or French Fourth Republic, that took place after Vichy France collapsed, World War II, up until 1958, and it was more of like a parliamentarian system. But then in 58, when that republic collapsed, then you had a new republic, the Fifth Republic, which is what they still use today. And that's where they came up with like a presidency, a strong executive presidency. The country itself didn't completely collapse, just the government collapsed. Now, there is a possibility that, let's say, we have some sort of irreconcilable differences here in the United States, where people want to secede. Texas wants to secede. California wants to secede. There is a way that we can save the republic by creating a second republic. And I have been saying this for quite some time. But the second republic, and I think Dr. Joe Wolverton has been mentioning this quite a bit, is that if we go back to what the founding fathers wanted, which was federal government here, state governments here, it's the only way, in my opinion, that it's going to work. Mm-hmm. Because this way, if California wants to act kooky and crazy and come up with all these really messed up laws, go live in California and, have at it. If Texas, on the other hand, we want to be ruled more conservatively, then we can live a more conservative life. The government in DC can then stick to what it was supposed to do: trade, defense, interstate commerce, ports, stuff like that, and make it limited. The Constitution is only 4 pages.
Yeah,
that's it, 4 pages. This latest bill, the stimulus bill, to give us $600, it's what, 6,000, just under 6,000 pages, just under 5,000 pages.
It's under 6,000, about 5,500.
Just under 6,000 pages. Our Constitution was only 4 pages. Mm-hmm. The federal government was not supposed to just become this behemoth monster that we have today. Yeah. And I invite people to read some of Dr. Wolverton's writings. We need to become states again. We need to let the states run things. And then we're not going to have this. But
what do you think about multiple confederations within
the United States, or or just total separation? I mean,
I'm thinking of Confederate states, but like 3 of them, because let's just say, I mean, it's based sort of on ideology, and oddly enough, also on geographic location: Northeast, the West Coast, and the South and Midwest. And those are 3 different ideologies, really. Now, 2 of them are the same, the West Coast and the Northeast. But, and then just say, look, it's going to be 3 confederacies, and will still remain under, 1 republic. It's just, still 50 republics, but sectioned off, partitioned in 3.
I don't think it's that bad of an idea.
I don't think it is that bad of an idea as well, because you have a lot of like-minded people. Mm-hmm. Washington, Oregon, California, extremely like-minded.
Right.
Now, where would
But
Nevada fall? I don't know.
but here's what I'm going to say is that maybe we should go by county. That maybe the the coastal regions of California can form that confederation, and then you have like the eastern parts of California. If you look at the Texas counties along the border, almost all of them were blue. And you make that united with, let's say, parts of New Mexico and parts of Arizona that are blue. And you make that more, not so much as a country, but make that more as a state, as you were saying, or kind of an autonomous zone where they can run things the way they want. If they want to have their $15 an hour, fine, have your $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
The problem of having it as a state, like let's say the state of Texas is we're getting a lot of people from California moving to Texas. They're moving to the Austin area. HP, Oracle, Tesla are moving to the Austin area. Well, those idiots are going to come in and they're going to vote the same way they voted in California. There's a lot of people who leave California because it's a messed up state, and then they come here and what do? They vote the same way.
Yeah.
So,
well,
it would mean the end of the states as we know it, and look
right.
at it more of like regions.
Yeah.
That's the only way I think it's going to work.
That's a way that it could work. I think, let's say that something was awry this election. Let's say that either there was fraud during the election and Biden knows it, or this is all a ruse and Trump knows it and he's just trying to hold on to power. I think the only way, in the course of things staying together, I think the only way that it remains a republic of all 50 states, remaining together as is, but maybe obviously we want it to be cleaned up a bit. I think the only way that we remain is there's a confession. A confession is brought forth from either Trump or from Biden. And they say, look, this all, because whoever wins, and if there's no, hey, here's really what happened, and there's no, here's what happened from the side that actually did it, the other side's never going to believe it. And you're going to be more divided than we've ever been. I think that is the only way that this gets cleared up. Do I see it happening? No, I don't see it happening. I'm saying that that's the only way that I think it will, that it could restore things. I don't see that happening, but I think that's the only way that it could restore this.
Well, there are a lot of. It's funny how you had one whistleblower turn into the impeachment of a president, but now we have multiple.
We never got his name. Never got his name.
Yeah, but then we have multiple whistleblowers who are stating they saw guys who were driving around trucks, 18-wheelers with votes. Mm-hmm. They're not getting their day in court. They're being suppressed. They're being called all kinds of things. Some of them their lives are being threatened. I saw one person that was walking outside his or her home, and they were shot at. There's a video of it where a car or truck pulls up and starts shooting at them. I don't know. Have you seen that video at all?
I have not.
I'll have to show it to you. But this was a whistleblower. This was someone who stated that something wasn't right. There was one of the guys in Detroit that was that was challenging the vote. He's been doxxed and his life is being threatened.
Right. Yeah, that's happening a lot.
Yeah. So it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, that story is going to be smothered by the mainstream media, and we'll never hear about it. So there you go.
Well, I don't think that would be smothered. Like, I think they're smothering a lot, but I don't think if Biden or Trump, especially Trump, good grief, you think that would get smothered? Hell no. Like, if he comes out and like, it was a game and I was put up to it and blah, blah, blah. And here's the criminality, and they're going to blow that one to the high heavens.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
No, I don't think so either, but I'm just throwing that out there as the only alternative to get this thing back on track. And speaking of getting back on track, as we always do, we like to end the show on a scripture. This scripture comes from Romans 13, 1 and 2. And this is a scripture that pisses me off when people utilize it out of context. And I don't even want to go into great detail, but anywho, it says this: let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that are ordained, the powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resists the power, resists the ordinance of God, and they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. He's not even, in this context, not when he says damnation, he's not saying like damnation to hell. Although, like, if you resist the ordinance of, like parents, or you resist the authority of like your conscience telling you, what you should be doing, your parents, what you should be doing, or what the government, that is in power, that is correctly running the show. We're not talking about, and that's the thing, is that's what Christians say, or people will say, or even non-Christians will be like, well, I thought, Christians are supposed to obey the government, because that's what the Bible says and everything. Like, no, God created the ordinances. He created the powers that be. He created the idea of government. So that, and he created the idea of parents, man and woman, together to raise the child. But it doesn't mean, like many things, that if it's corrupted or perverted, that you still abide by it. Like an Adolf Hitler or a Joseph Stalin or a Mao. You don't, there is, as James Comey would say, a higher loyalty. His great, novel. And it probably is a novel. So there is this, like, God, whatever God creates is in itself perfect. Every good and perfect gift comes from the Father above, right? Well, mankind perverts it. You have a abusive dad, abusive mother, alcoholic parents, drug addicted parents. Now, you respect the office, you respect the position, but you don't abide by certain rules that are counter to what God has already instituted. That this is, if God says do this, right? Let's say 10 commandments, and then your parents say anti-10 commandments, or the government says anti-10 commandments. It's like, or, hey, you hiding Jews? Let them, let us see where the Jews are. And you're like, oh yeah, well, the government asked me to, so I gotta let them go. That is the whole thing, is like, people don't really think this through. They think just strictly on the face of it, whatever the powers that be, those are the ones we gotta obey. It's just like, no, you obey. And Joe Wolverton, speaking of him, does a great job of explaining, you don't obey unlawful laws.
Correct. Unjust laws are not legitimate laws.
Correct. All right. So, Alan, where can people find us?
They can find us on Parler.
Yay! At The Sons of History.
That's right. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. We also have our own website.
Barely on Twitter. I don't even mess with that thing. I apologize, people.
Okay. We also have our own website, www.thesonsofhistory.com. You have your Thursday night live chats on Instagram, 9 p.m. Central. I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Why don't you?
We
also write for the Epoch Times.
Yeah, there you go. I do sense that my slavery at work, my day job, is going to come to an end. Not in terms of losing my job, God willing, please don't. But But I've caught up with quite a bit of my work. But of course, now there's other people's work that they're probably going to throw at me. I don't know. But we'll see.
Well, it's good to know that you caught up.
Yeah, but do plan on doing some trips. Hopefully 2021, I do plan on making some trips. I'm planning on going to Pensacola to go meet with that author, Wesley Odom, I think was his name.
Yeah.
Wesley
I think
Odom.
that's his name. Yeah,
I think it's Wesley Odom. Yeah, he wrote a book about the Battle of Pensacola. So definitely going to go there, and he's going to show me around, and we'll do a video of that. We do need to get that drone fixed.
Drone's done. Son.
Is it done? Okay. So, and then we got something coming up on the Republic of Texas and the Texas Revolution. So
yeah, speaking of, we still got to go to those two places before we
That's right.
get it all cut and done.
That's correct. That's correct.
That was a lot of fun when we went. So had a good time. I was telling Jared, I was like, man, I really hope that you got some of those bits, especially when you and I were yelling at each other at what was it, Goliad? At the was it the Battle of Goliad, and we were at the sort of like the little monument that they had built. And you're like, I'm really tired. I don't want to do another speech. I was like, another speech?
Oh, yes.
I was like, who are you, Winston Churchill?
It was cold out there, man.
That was so good. And you turned to me like an old woman. you had your hands all, and you're like wrapped up. I'm like, what's wrong? It wasn't even that cold. I mean, it was chilly, but it wasn't that cold. Like, I'm cold. You're Lebanese.
So?
You're not used to the cold. Your blood doesn't like the cold. Isn't it always hot in Lebanon?
I was raised in America. No, you're thinking of a desert.
Isn't that what Lebanon is? It's just a
Lebanon
desert,
has
right?
no desert. No, Lebanon does not have a desert.
No, I think
you know
I think you're wrong.
Have you ever been there? It's even a Trivial Pursuit question. What is the only Middle Eastern country that does not have a desert? Lebanon.
Jordan.
Jordan has a desert.
Are you sure?
Did you see the movie Lawrence of Arabia? Part of that was filmed in Jordan.
Jesus went to the wilderness.
That's not Jordan.
Is it Lebanon?
No, that's Israel. That's the West Bank. Yeah, I mean, that was the West Bank of Jordan, which I think they relinquished control over. And, Jericho is now part of the Palestinian Authority. It's like between Jericho and Jerusalem.
I know where it is. Don't play this game with me. But I did enjoy this little interaction to end off the show. So, all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you enjoyed the show. Always keep the comments coming. Do us a favor. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, rate, and review over at our podcast, wherever it is that you're listening. Tell your friends and family about it. Really build us up if you don't mind. And yeah, that's about it. Oh, also follow us on Parler now that we're on there. So we will chat with you later. Have a great week and Happy New Year.